I am Jenna, and this is Gin Tonic. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you are a cocktail drinking history nerd like me, hit that subscribe button and join me for a drink. For this episode, I thought it was about time that I talked about gin and tonic. And you can't talk about gin and tonic without first talking about gin. The basic definition of gin is a neutral grain spirit that's been flavored with juniper. It can be flavored with a variety of other botanicals and flavorings, but juniper has to be the predominant one in order for it to be considered gin. The origins of gin are with a rudimentary spirit in Holland, which was referred to as Juniper, and I actually have a bottle here. And it's very similar to gin. It's still a neutral grain spirit, and it's still predominantly juniper. An interesting fact for you, Juniper is actually Dutch for juniper. So this is where gin originates, and if you get a chance to taste this, I like to think that it's just a little warmer tasting, if that makes any sense. How did the British get their hands on this, and how did it become so popular in England? The answer is this. In the 1600s, during the 30 Years' War, the British soldiers were fighting the Dutch, and those Dutch were given rations of gin, or Juniper, before they went to battle, which is how they got what is referred to as Dutch courage. Soldiers brought this home, and you start seeing it made in pretty much every home, which is where you originally get the term bathtub gin. So that's why gin was so popular, but why gin and tonic? And the answer can again be found with the army. The British East India Company was in India and was having a problem with malaria. And at that time, quinine was known to be a cure, but the powder that they gave to the soldiers was so bitter that they refused to take it. Now, I did do an episode on Dubonnet, and if you haven't seen that, you can find it on my page. And that was how the French combated malaria, by inventing a wine-based aperitif with quinine in it. The British soldiers' answer was to take their gin rations, mix it with water, some quinine, a little bit of sugar, and some lime, and the first gin and tonic was created. For this, I knew I wanted to try a couple different gins and some different flavored tonics just to see how they paired with each other. So what I wanted to do was have these poured for me so that I could blind taste them. And if you ever have the opportunity to do this, I highly recommend it, because my experience has been that whatever it says on the bottle, you're going to pick up just because your mind is already there. So what I did was I had these poured, and I decided for myself what I could smell and taste. And it was very interesting because these all smelled and taste completely different to me. The Brockmans had a lot more fruit components than I got on all the other ones. For the Plymouth, this one was much more pine and citrus forward. And then the Gunpowder, no kidding, the first thing I picked up was a brine, like an olive brine. And then after that, I did get a tea smell and a little bit of lemon. So after making those conclusions, I was able to decide what garnishes and what tonic water I wanted to pair with them. And really quick on tonic water, and I'm using the Barker & Quinn. When you see Indian tonic water, that's telling you a couple different things. The first thing is that 60% of the world's quinine comes from India. So it makes sense that it would be called Indian tonic water. The second thing is that with Indian tonic water, it's been flavored with sugar, whereas just traditional tonic water is actually flavored with high fructose corn syrup. Traditional glassware would be a highball, but part of the fun of gin and tonic is playing with the glassware. So I've chosen 3 different glasses to use for the 3 different gin and tonics that I'm making, and I'm gonna use my flute for the first one. As far as ratios, I've seen everything from 1-to-1 gin to tonic to 3-to-1 gin to tonic. For this first one, for the Brockmans, I'm doing the traditional tonic water because this has so much flavor in it already. I didn't want to add any additional flavors in the flavored tonic waters that I found. So because I'm using this little flute, I'm gonna do a ratio of probably 1-to-1. So I'll do 2 ounces and 2 ounces. And when you're making these gin and tonics, what's different with this as opposed to a lot of other cocktails is that you want to put your ice in the glass first. And that's because you're using a carbonated beverage, which you want to pour over top of it. If you were to put your ice in after this, your tonic water would go everywhere. As far as garnish, this one I did get cherries and blueberries, so I thought it would be fun to use that as garnish. So I've got some fresh blueberries here. I'm gonna throw in there. And then they do use a lot of different herbs as well. So I thought it would be nice to use a little bit of fresh basil to balance out the fruit here. One thing you do wanna do is stir it just a little bit, and you can do that with your garnish in there, which will do two things. It'll incorporate whatever garnish that you've got in your drink, and also mixes everything together. Very refreshing. All right, so the next one I'm gonna do is with the Plymouth Gin. For this one, I'm gonna use my wine glass, and there's a reason for that. I thought that the orange was very prominent in this one. So I've got an orange spiral that I just sliced from an orange, and I'm going to decorate my glass with that. For ice cubes, I've made my own that will fit into this glass. And if you don't have one of these trays, I can include the link for you. Get in there, you little. This one, I've got a little bit bigger surface, so I'm going to do 2 to 1. 2 ounces of gin, Plymouth gin. This one is honeybush orange, so it should complement this gin and garnish really nicely. So 2 ounces of the Plymouth and 4 ounces of the orange flavored tonic. Give it a little stir to incorporate everything that you've got in there. And I don't want to mess it up either, because I've got my little orange slice in here just so. And then I'm also going to include a little rosemary sprig. I like this one better than I like this one so far. For the last one, I'm using the closest thing that I had to a highball, and I'm gonna do this with the Gunpowder Irish gin that I love so much. So for this last one, I'm gonna do 3 to 1 gin to tonic, and I'm going to be using a hibiscus flavored tonic for this one. So again, I've got 2 ounces of my gin, and then I've got 6 ounces to pour in of my tonic water. Also going to use some traditional lemon and lime for this. And anytime that you use the lemon or lime wedges when you're making your gin and tonic, you squeeze a little bit of it in there so you get those refreshing flavors. So last one, hibiscus with the gunpowder gin. So I gotta be honest, out of all the 3, this is my least favorite. I did use the most tonic water ratio-wise to this one. The middle is probably the sweet spot for me, so the 2 to 1. But this was a great experiment, you know, like make a couple, do the different ratios, and see what you like best. That's the fun in all this, right? Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button. I am Jenna, and this is Gin and Tonic. Cheers.